It's great to have Professor of Political Science at Cyprus College, Peter Mathews, with us. A very good morning our time to you, Peter. A big focus.
Good morning, Tim.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Of course, a big focus on former President Donald Trump. We've used the word unprecedented so often in and around him, but these raids, could they be the end of his future political aspirations?
It very well could be, Tim, because these are very, very serious. I mean, there's the Presidential Records Act of 1978, passed by Congress, which requires that any of the former president's material that he's acquired while in office, written material, notes, documents, have to be in the purview of the National Archives. This president chose to take a whole lot of them to his Mar-a-Lago residence, and they were not stored in any kind of secure area. First of all, he couldn't take them legally. Secondly, there was no proper storage. These archives, I mean, this material was found in different rooms. And the FBI did, in fact, get a subpoena to try to get him to give those articles back to them, back to the DOJ and to the archives, and he didn't do it. So they actually got the permission to get a warrant to go and search his Mar-a-Lago. And when they did, they found 184 documents, out of which 25 were classified top secret. And they were just laying around different places. So it's very dangerous, and it could really have spelled the end of, this whole situation. Once it gets resolved, it has to go to court first, of course, if it does.
If you want to call it Trumpian politics, it tends to follow a different script to most things we've ever seen, particularly in the United States. There is a school of thought saying that this could galvanise his support base.
There is, certainly, and he's certainly considering running for president again. But again, his support base tends to be just under half, quite a bit under half of the overall voter population. And in fact, it's only a little over half of the Republican Party itself. Over half the Republicans support him in the primaries for 2024. They said they will. And less than half, quite a bit less than half of the American voters actually support him. So we'll have to see if this will galvanize him enough to put him into contention for the presidency or for anything else. It may not even get him that far. We'll see.
Well, he could be in a bit of trouble before then, couldn't he, really, with the law?
He could certainly be in legal jeopardy. So could some of his lawyers at Mar-a-Lago with him. And this is a big problem for the president, because if he is found to be in legal jeopardy based on the various evidence that's coming forth from the DOJ that they're actually accumulating and investigating, then he gets to be indicted, and then that goes to a trial, a criminal trial, for possibly obstructing justice, as the affidavit that was redacted but made public recently showed. The affidavit to get the warrant for the search. That affidavit said something about the possibility of obstruction of justice by someone at Mar-a-Lago. We don't know who that could be exactly. If that's the case, that's definitely criminally chargeable, and it means years in prison. So it is very possible he's in legal jeopardy. We don't know yet. We have to hold off and see how things go with the investigation.
As you and I know, things change quickly. Life is a moving feast. And while the whole Donald Trump saga is going over here, we're seeing the growth, the very pacey growth of Ron DeSantis, the governor, this young governor, early 40s. He's got such a brilliant recent history. What do you make of his aspirations for the White House?
Well, DeSantis was up and coming until recently, when this revelation occurred, and then Trump garnered some more support from his people, and he climbed up ahead of DeSantis further. DeSantis is still the second most important candidate possible for the presidency. He's second behind Trump. Trump is number one with over 50% of Republicans supporting him for the next presidential election if he runs, and DeSantis has less than 40% support. So it all depends on how Trump comes out as to whether DeSantis can actually mount a meaningful challenge and overtake him or not. It's highly unlikely at this point. But we never know what will happen with all of these legal jeopardy and investigations going on in the in President Trump's orbit and himself as well.
All right, let's look at the US and internally. Inflation numbers very high, a difficult time for the economy.
Yes, they are fairly high compared to recent years, certainly, and it's hurting working people, the middle class, and the price of gasoline had gone up. It goes down slightly, but it's still way above what it should be. And this means getting people to work and costing them so much extra. Food prices have gone up. All of these things that happen with inflation, but I think it's going to be leveling off, and we'll see how soon, though, and to what extent, because that's going to be key in the vote in November. Although I must say that the ruling on the Dobbs case, dealing with the Supreme Court's ruling that basically got rid of the guarantee of American women to be able to have abortions at the national level, this was a huge ruling. It's galvanized a lot of Democrats and progressives who are not even Democrats but independents to vote for Democratic candidates. We saw a special election in New York recently where a Democratic candidate won a Republican district because of that. It was subsequent to Dobbs. So there are many different factors and moving parts right now, dynamic, and we'll have to see how it actually all plays out.
Yeah,
in terms
absolutely.
of midterms and then the final election.
Yeah, and President Joe Biden, very much on the front foot when it comes to foreign policy, military foreign policy at the moment.
Well, certainly, and he's got his hands full as well with all these different conflicts that are either going on, like the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which is horrendous for the people in Ukraine right now, and Russia itself with the sanctions. The Russian people are also suffering. There's a lot of things going on in that regard, but also now you have the possibility of China and Taiwan, because China has never forgotten its actual suzerainty, sovereignty over Taiwan, and they have. And we, the United States, recognize one China policy, which sometimes in the words but not deeds seems to occur. But when Nancy Pelosi goes to Taiwan, that makes things even more dicey. And then President Biden is stuck in a bind. He asked her not to go. He didn't really ask her not to go. He just said it would be better not if she didn't. And yet she went. So these are very difficult things in terms of foreign policy. ISIS in Syria, the U.S. has hit them there, and the ISIS has also gotten involved in Afghanistan. It's terrible what kind of foreign policy crisis President Biden faces, far more than other presidents in recent years at this time.
Is COVID a memory now in the U.S.?
Well, yes and no. Some people think it's a memory, and they're acting like it doesn't exist, and they're going around without masks indoors, shopping and things. And yet the numbers have been starting to go up again, and 400 Americans are dying every day of it. And people are catching it so quickly. And older people, or those who are vulnerable, more vulnerable, immunocompromised, and even the ones who are older but not immunocompromised, are in danger of severe hospitalization, possible death, and some are dying. So this is really also in the news, and people are conflicted in two different directions. But children are going back to schools now without any masks on required, no social distancing. I think it's precipitous, and we should have really tried to knock this out early on by doing the right thing, and we should get back to the right thing as soon as we can.
Peter, great to have you on the program, back on the program. We haven't spoken for a while, and good to see you. Hopefully we'll catch up real soon.
Great to be here, Tim. Thank you so much. Take care.